All right, some other great details about paying bills. The first one is um, you can create 1099s for vendors when they're due, when they're not employees, and when they're not incorporated. So this is a fairly simple process. The first one is that you go to any given vendor and you go in and enter their federal tax ID number and you check the box that says that they are eligible for a 1099. Now they are good. Now the system is going to automatically keep track of that information. Then, when you enter a bunch of bills, you pay a bunch of bills. In other words, you're paying them a whole bunch of money, and you go through the process here, the 1099 wizard. In the wizard, it gives you a step-by-step process to make sure that everything is accurate and correct, so that you can issue 1099s at the end of the year for your vendors. And the process is very important when you have people that you're paying out, because if you are audited by the IRS, if you have this vendor list and they are not incorporated, and believe me, the IRS finds this out, if you do not issue them a 1099, then they can and often will disallow the expense, especially when it comes to labor type 1099 activities. You know, you have someone who's working for you as a 1099 contractor. So make sure you got ducks in a row and get their information. What our procedure has always been is, if a client or if a person's going to work for one of my clients, before they get their first check, they are going to fill out a W-9 and completely, and then we will issue them that first check, and then we've got the information we need to prepare 1099s at the end of the year. All right, so the next activity is some great preferences about doing accounts payable process. And first one is auto recall the last transaction for this name. And let me look for this. I think it's under maybe general. Yeah, yes, auto recall. Okay, so under general preferences, my preferences, you should check that box right there. What happens is you enter in all these bills for all these customers all the time, but you, every time you enter them in, you have to remember who is the, or not customers, but vendors. You know, what is the expense for that particular vendor? You know, was that office supplies or whatever it was? Well, when you check that box right there, it will automatically recall the last transaction. So if you've got repeat invoices coming from a particular vendor, all of a sudden you're entering in, the process of entering in became exceedingly easy because it shows that detail. Another thing is, do you want the system to automatically populate QuickBooks with today's date or use the last entered date? If you're entering in a whole bunch of bills and they're all kind of a certain day, then you might want to enter based on the last entered date. All right. You know, some people don't use QuickBooks checks, but I would suggest that you do use the QuickBooks issued checks. They're quite inexpensive. A good source to get very inexpensive checks for QuickBooks and also deposit slips is half-price checks. You can check that out online. They really are half price for the first order that you have of checks, and their prices are spot on. So you can usually get a fairly good deal. If you use these checks, they're fairly automatic. You can order them from your bank, but that's about the most expensive way to get them. But it's very simple. When you use a check to pay a bill, if you're writing checks out of QuickBooks, it automatically makes it easier because you don't have to handwrite it. Number two, it makes the amount that's on the checks always match the amount in QuickBooks and makes the reconciliation process much easier and much smoother. Third, you have a second and a third backup. You send out the check, but you've got the backup right on paper of the transaction that happened that you can staple your receipt to and keep for your accounting records. So, that I would strongly suggest that anybody use that. Another part about bill pay is the bill tracker. So this is a great little feature that gives you information about a particular vendor or all vendors. So it provides a nice summary. If I can find a vendor that has activity, yeah, it finds this great summary and allows you to perform activities right from this location. It's a great summary of all the activity that you have been doing for any given period of time. Shows unpaid bills and paid bills and things when they get overdue. So you've got just a great little record. And if you had overdue bills, it'd show them right there. Great resource to know where your bill situation is very quickly.